You ever have that moment where you look at your life and think, okay, I'm finally getting somewhere. Your income is higher than it used to be. Your lifestyle looks better on the outside. Maybe you upgraded your phone, moved into a nicer place, started eating better, dressing better, and for a second, it feels like progress. But then, something strange happens. At the end of the month, you still feel tight. You still hesitate before checking your bank account. You still feel that quiet pressure in the back of your mind, like you're one unexpected expense away from stress. So now you're confused, because if things are getting better, why doesn't it feel like they are? Most people assume financial progress is obvious. More money in better life, less stress. That's the equation we're sold. But in reality, progress with money is one of the easiest things to misinterpret. Because there's a version of progress that looks real, feels real, and even gets validated by the people around you. But underneath, it's quietly keeping you stuck. And the worst part? It doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like growth. No one warned you about this version of progress because, from the outside, it looks like you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. You're earning more. You're upgrading your life. You're leveling up. So how could that be wrong? It's not wrong, but it's incomplete. And that gap between what looks like progress and what actually builds stability, that's where most people get trapped for years. Let's slow this down for a second. Imagine two versions of the same person. Same job. Same salary increase. Same starting point. The first version gets a raise, and almost immediately, their life expands to match it. Better apartment. More eating out. Subscriptions they didn't have before. Small upgrades that feel harmless on their own. Nothing extreme, nothing irresponsible. Just a slightly better version of life. And honestly, it feels deserved, because for the first time, they can afford it. Now the second version of that same person also gets a raise. But instead of upgrading everything right away, they pause. Not forever, just long enough to ask a different question. Not what can I afford now, but what do I want my money to do for me later? So they still enjoy some of the increase, but a portion of it quietly goes somewhere else. Savings, a buffer, something that doesn't show up in their daily lifestyle. Now, here's the interesting part. 6 months later, if you looked at both lives from the outside, the first person looks like they've made more progress. Their life is visibly better. More comfort, more convenience, more signals of success. The second person? They don't look that different. Maybe even a little behind, depending on who you ask. But internally, it's a completely different story. The first person still feels pressure, because their new lifestyle now depends on maintaining that higher income. There's no real margin for error. If something goes wrong, if work becomes unstable, if an unexpected expense shows up, everything feels fragile again. The second person? They feel something most people don't even realize they're missing. Space. Not just financially, but mentally. Because their life didn't expand as fast as their income did. And that gap, that quiet gap, is where real progress lives. The mistake that feels like progress is simple. It's upgrading your lifestyle at the same speed your income grows. And again, it doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels logical. Of course, you should enjoy your money. Of course, your life should improve. And that's true. But here's the part most people don't see. When your lifestyle grows at the same pace as your income, your financial position doesn't actually change. You just move sideways, at a higher level. Same stress, same dependency, same feeling of, I should be doing better than this, just with nicer things around you. There's a psychological layer to this that makes it even harder to notice. Humans adapt incredibly fast. What used to feel like a luxury becomes normal quicker than you expect. That new apartment feels amazing for a few months. Then it's just home. That upgrade in food, clothes, comfort, it becomes your new baseline. And once something becomes your baseline, going backwards feels like loss. So now you're not just maintaining your lifestyle, you're protecting it, which creates pressure. And that pressure keeps you locked into needing your current income level or higher. Not because you're building something, but because you've built a life that constantly consumes what you earn. This is why some people make significantly more money than they used to, and still feel like they're barely keeping up. It's not because they're irresponsible. It's because their version of progress was visible, but not structural. They improved their life, but they didn't improve their position. Think about it like this. There's a difference between looking stable and being stable. Looking stable is having things that signal progress. Being stable is having time, flexibility, and options. One can exist without the other, and most people, without realizing it, choose the first one. Because it's immediate, it's visible, and it feels good right now. At some point, something shifts. Usually not because of a financial breakthrough, but because of a moment of discomfort. Maybe it's a surprise expense that throws everything off. Maybe it's realizing you can't take time off without stress. Maybe it's just that quiet thought. Why do I still feel this way, even though I'm earning more? And that's when the real question shows up. Not, how do I make more money? But why isn't more money fixing this feeling? That question changes everything. Because now you're not chasing income. You're examining structure. You start noticing that peace with money doesn't come from what you spend. It comes from what you don't need to spend. It comes from the gap, that space between what you earn and what your life requires. That space is what gives you options. It's what lets you breathe when something goes wrong. It's what lets you say no to things you don't want to do. It's what slowly shifts you from reacting to money to directing it. And the moment you see that clearly, your definition of progress changes. Progress is no longer just about upgrading your life. It's about increasing your freedom within it. So what does this actually look like in real life? Not extreme budgeting, not cutting out everything you enjoy, not living like you're depriving yourself. It's much simpler than that. It's about creating a slight delay between earning more and living more. When your income increases, instead of immediately expanding everything, you pause. You let part of that increase exist without being consumed, even if it's small, because that's how the gap begins. And the gap is what changes your experience of money. It also means being a little more intentional with upgrades. Not, can I afford this? But, does this actually improve my life in a meaningful way? Or just temporarily? Because not all upgrades are equal. Some genuinely reduce stress and improve your day-to-day life. Others just look like progress, but quietly increase your financial pressure. Learning to tell the difference is a skill, and it gets easier the more honest you are with yourself. There's also something powerful about getting comfortable with stability before chasing expansion. Not staying stuck, but building a base that feels solid. Because when your foundation is strong, growth feels exciting instead of stressful. You're not afraid of losing it, because you're not stretched thin. And maybe the most important part, you stop measuring your progress by how your life looks, and start measuring it by how it feels. Do you feel more relaxed than you did a year ago? Do you have more flexibility? More breathing room? Those are quieter indicators, but they're far more honest. It's easy to think you're falling behind when your life doesn't visibly change as fast as your income. It can even feel like you're doing something wrong, like you're not enjoying the rewards of your effort. But sometimes, what looks like slow progress is actually real progress, the kind that doesn't show up immediately, but quietly changes how your life feels over time. Less pressure, less urgency, less of that constant background noise about money. You don't need to rush to prove that you're doing better. You don't need every improvement to be visible, because the most meaningful changes with money are often the ones no one else sees. They're internal. They're structural. They're the difference between a life that looks stable and one that actually is. So if you've ever felt like you're doing everything right and still wondering why it doesn't feel like enough, it might not be because you're failing. It might just be that the kind of progress you've been taught to chase isn't the kind that actually gives you peace. And once you see that, you stop trying to grow faster. You start trying to grow smarter. And that's when things begin to feel different. Not overnight, but steadily, quietly, in a way that actually lasts. Because real progress with money doesn't just improve your lifestyle. It improves your relationship with it. And that's the part most people don't realize they've been missing.